All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully, your favorite Chelsea podcast out there, and a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. Dan, one of your hosts here, alongside Sam, who is in Azerbaijan in the Champions League match. He was there. He was attending on behalf of London's Blue podcast, but he's made it back for this Wolves match preview. That's right, we're going to be previewing this weekend's Premier League fixture, the last one before we take on Burnley. That's right, international break coming up. This is Chelsea's last opportunity to pick up maximum points to stay in the hunt for a return to the Champions League through league position on the table against a Wolves side that has just sacked their manager, interim manager involved right now. So I don't think that technically qualifies them for a new manager bounce, Sam, but I will let you be the judge of that.
Always the toughest ones to do the previews, to be honest, because you've done all your research and then suddenly, boom, the manager's gone. So you have no idea what the formation is going to be, who's going to play, how they're going to play. And we'll obviously talk about how Wolves have gotten along this season. But one of the major issues is just, players not being as good as they were last season. So a new manager bounce does work in that favor, trying to just rejuvenate certain players who've got their chins down. So will be very interesting to see that. And obviously we both have been talking about it, having to throw on certain players against Karabakh in Baku. That is also going to be a factor. Fatigue is going to be a factor. It's a 5.5 hour flight from Azerbaijan back to London. So it will be taxing. So lots of uncertainty. So this could swing either way. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, we look a little dull for long spells, but well, when we've got the opportunity, we do in dirty and take the points home. So hopefully we'll get it done in a nice, serene fashion, because we don't need any more, heart attacks after what happened in Baku.
That is absolutely correct. I think we're looking for a very just by the book victory. No issue, no problems, an early goal or two to set us into a very happy international break. But look, again, we go through strengths and weaknesses. We talk about, what are some of the opportunities that Enzo Maresca can take advantage of when it comes to facing the side. We then flip the script. Sam's asked me a couple questions. I try to think about how Enzo Maresca is going to solve them with the player personnel or tactic situations that he's going to put together. And then we get to our predictions, both some just general scoreline predictions, then also our on the ledge predictions, trying to come up with crazy things that we think could actually materialize in reality. But before that, Sam, I just want to give you a couple minutes at the top. I mean, you had the opportunity to travel to Azerbaijan. You had the chance to be at the Karabakh match during the midweek. I love for you to share with the listeners. Again, you went as an accredited member of the press. You were there for pre-match. You were there for post-match. You were there for the game. Walk us through a little bit about the experience, your time there, your takeaways. Obviously, if you've not read the copious amounts of newsletter content that Sam has put out as well, that is a invaluable accompaniment to what you share both in the audio and video form of this podcast, but would love for you to just walk us through that experience, because you are the preeminent storyteller in the London is Blue network.
Well, that is very, very kind of you. But first of all, I mentioned this when we were talking before the pod began. Just the pride of, being in the room full of people that you've admired, the work that you've read, and tried to be a better storyteller, a better analyst. Nizar, obviously, great writer for Chelsea for so many years. He was there, and I'm fortunate enough to call him an acquaintance, hopefully somewhere between an acquaintance and a friend. And a couple of other really good journalists were there. So it was really nice to be in that room. And most of all, standing in front of Enzo Maresca and saying, this is Sam from London is Blue, and introducing myself and being able to ask a question was exhilarating. And I wouldn't have imagined doing that ever in my life. So it's something checked off my bucket list, and it's obviously being able to go as, carrying London is Blue. We've worked so hard to make this, an independent, fan-owned media platform where we are free from biases, we are free from fear of going out there and asking questions that probably other people think would disappoint the manager or, cut ties. We went there with, a little bit of courage and sat there at a match which was absolutely beautiful. Baku itself is a gorgeous city. Everybody who's been there for the Europa League final will obviously attest to that. But being in that stadium, talking to a lot of Azerbaijani Chelsea fans, just the pride that they took, knowing that their club is taking on, what is just one of the giants of football and obviously world champions. So taking away a point. And Gurbanov, the manager, mentioned that he's been disappointed that he hasn't taken a single point away from any English team. They pushed Tottenham very, very hard last season, but being able to do that here was a bittersweet thing because I saw the joy in the press box. Journalists got up, absolutely patting each other on the back, embraces, music playing there, everybody clapping, over the moon in terms of a point, and that was great to see, to be honest, and I was super happy for them.
Well, we love the fact that you got to be there. We love the fact that you got to enjoy the stadium, the time there, the people, and we do not enjoy not taking maximum points on our end, just from a Chelsea perspective. But I guess if you have to give up a couple of points, uh, nice to make it for a team that has never taken a point away from English opposition. So again, credit to Carabag, credit to the work that they put in. Obviously, they have not made it easy across any of the games in their Champions League fixtures so far. So hats off to them, credit to them. Hopefully, we are not the only team that they take points off of this season. We'd love for a few more points to be shaved off a couple of other teams and not just us to be the lone example. But look, I love to then get into this game that we have coming up this weekend. It is a match against Wolves. Wolves, again, struggling to the point of just having let their manager go. So we are now in interim manager category because the new manager has not yet been appointed. That's right. Vitor Pereira is not going to be on the touchline. So, Sam, do you want to walk us through maybe just some of the considerations first and foremost from just a player availability standpoint? I mean, typically we don't record these before the pre-match press conferences, but we've had a chance for the press conferences to come in. I think we have a better view of who is or isn't available on the day, which does put us in a situation where we can be a little bit more instructive to the listeners around the impact of that for a Wolves team that currently sits at the very bottom of the Premier League table on 2 points. A win in this game wouldn't even move them into 19th position, which is where Forest is on 6 points. They're negative 15 in their goal difference. They have scored. It's been rough. It has been a really, really rough 7 goals for 22 allowed and only 2 draws and 8 losses across the first 10 matches.
Yeah, to say it's been brutal is quite the understatement, but yes, we've had the opportunity, thankfully, to look at the press conferences, and yeah, there are just pretty much 3 or 4 concerns. Emmanuel Agbadu is somebody who's played a lot, somebody I was watching very, very closely as a centre back, and he's also played in defensive midfield, but in true Chelsea scouting fashion, he's been red carded last game, so he's suspended for this one. Matt Doherty is somebody who's got a knee injury. He's obviously a long-standing PL player with lots of experience, so he's been ruled out. And Rodrigo Gomes is somebody who's also was a key player for them, and he's been ruled out till next year. So just the 3 injury concerns for them. I don't think it's too significant. I think whenever they've played without these 3 players, they've been pretty much the same, which isn't a compliment. But yeah, I mean, we're just looking at the new manager coming in and figuring out what the permutations and combinations are going to be and how to get the best out of the players. So I think that's going to be the big challenge for them, and also just the element of surprise and unpredictability in terms of what we're going to face and who's going to be playing against us.
Yeah, definitely things to keep in mind. But look, we're going to get our first ad break out of the way. When we come back, we will start to talk a little bit more about style of play, what we think is going to be happening just in terms of how they will set up or how they've been setting up. Because obviously, when things have not been working well at all, there might be some pretty dramatic changes from the former manager to the interim manager for the, I would imagine, one game that they are in charge before over international break, they do appoint a permanent successor. But look, ad break out of the way. Stay tuned. Be right back. All right, Sam. So run us through again, nightmare start to the season here. And that might be putting it as an understatement. Obviously, we just left October. We just left Halloween, but it does seem as if it's the Freddy Krueger style of nightmares that they've been experiencing as Wolves fans, supporters, and the club.
Yeah, nightmare is the right word, to be honest, and there are multiple issues, and just from your manager, when you start the season, you want stability. And one of the major reasons was he just couldn't put down a workable system. He started with a with a 3-4-3 and abandoned it after 4 games. Then he realized that, okay, probably my engine room has got the personnel to be, the core aspect of this team. So he then switched to various iterations of a three-man midfield. He's went to 4-3-3, he's gone to 4-1-4-1, he's gone to a 5-3-2, a 3-5-2, and trying to basically do something there, but none of it worked. Then obviously you've got the additional challenge of having to replace key players like Matheus Cunha and Ryan Aït-Nouri, who moved to City. So that's been also like a major, major challenge. Cunha, for example, had 21 goal and assist contributions in the league, which was almost one in every five that Wolves managed last season, which is a massive, massive number there. So not being able to compensate for that has been an issue. And we talked about significant drop offs from established players. So Jose Sa, for example, is somebody who's been there for quite a long time. He was their number one goalkeeper, undisputed number one for the longest time, and he's basically been just put to the side by Sam Johnston. So he's come in, and Totti Gomes, for example, was quite good when he came, not good enough. Jorgen Stan Larsen was mentioned as a possible option for Chelsea, after he had like 14 goals and 4 assists, I think, last season. And this season hasn't really just kicked off in certain aspects. So maybe the individuals are going down because of the team or vice versa. But, those players haven't really fired. And Wolves basically as a unit have suffered. So that's what caused the demise. And, Vitor Pereira could basically just point to the players, and there was this viral clip of him desperately punching his fist into his hand saying, give me something. And soon after that, he was just fired. So that clip essentially summed up Wolves season for me so far.
And then as we think about maybe just, how the individual kind of, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, it does feel as if, like, I don't know how you point out too many positives about a team that's only picked up 2 points in the Premier League. So, I mean, is there anything else from a player standpoint, execution standpoint, things with maybe individual players who are still, worth putting attention and time around? Because again, I mean, it's still a team that plays in the Premier League, that's been in the Premier League for a significant period of time. Not every player has been either replaced or in a situation where maybe they are struggling to the level that the entire side is. So, are there still danger men in this squad? To put it lightly.
I think where we have to be absolutely wary of Wolves is that we're probably not at 100% fitness, and that's something that I'm worrying about. And if I were to, obviously, it's very hard for me to figure out what's going to happen. But Rob Edwards, the Middlesbrough manager, I think he didn't take his training today. His press conference was cancelled, so uh, probably going to be the next manager. And I don't know if he'll get there in time, or he'll have any sort of like time to go there and get them drilled in. But when he was at Luton, did a pretty good job with a back three, had some flying wing backs. So I don't know if the instruction there will be to follow that kind of brief. And I think personnel wise, there are enough people there to try and fit into that system. So I think it's probably wiser to analyze player by player and figure out what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and what's been the story so far. So I would like to start with the goalkeeper, and probably going to say that we talked about Jose Sa. He's no longer, the first choice with Sam Johnston. So Johnston is, in my opinion, a better shot stopper, somebody who's pulled off some really good saves. But Sa is, in my opinion, much better with his feet. He's the one who played against us in the cup game, and unfortunately there were a couple of instances where his pass led to a goal. I think it was Andre Santos winning the ball from his pass, and Estevao chipping him. So that'll be interesting to watch who the new goalkeeper is in terms of a number one. In defense, we talked about Ait Nouri missing, so he was quite dynamic, given the ability, given the freedom to invert into positions, used to underlap into the box, used to arrive actually as an attacking midfielder at the edge of the box to score. If you remember that 4-2 game at Stamford Bridge with Pedro Neto causing all those kinds of damage. So that was Ait Nouri basically, showing his best game there. So he's gone, and they've basically moved Bueno on the left hand side, who is equally aggressive, pushes up, but quite a wide kind of fullback, sort of like a wing back player who will bomb up and down and cause a lot of issues with his pace. On the right hand side, you've got a more conventional defensive fullback in Ki Yana Hoever. So he's somebody who will Probably played a little conservative. If there's a chance of pushing up, if obviously they're losing, then he will become more adventurous, but allows Bueno to push up. He will stay back, hold a more conservative line, and try to plug any gaps in there. So that's basically the defense.
And then maybe just pushing ahead to look at the midfield and then also the attack. I mean, obviously, you've talked about, Sean Lawson, not maybe necessarily being at the level. So I know that we'll maybe get into him. And then obviously, I think there are some considerations of the midfield we should talk about too.
Absolutely. I think the midfield is arguably their strongest part in terms of the entire unit. So um, the balance is quite nice, in my opinion, Dan. So Andre is somebody who we were linked with when he was in Brazil. Is a defensive midfielder. He has the ability to orchestrate in the first phase, very comfortable on the ball, even back to goal. Has some good defensive strengths as well. So he, in my opinion, a little lacking in terms of mobility, but in terms of drive, in terms of getting stuck in to cause all kinds of trouble, he's definitely a good DM to have. So he's somebody who sits at the base in a three-man midfield and will try to clean up, try to orchestrate if they're trying to play in the first phase. Marshall Munetsi is somebody that they bought, and I watched a lot of him in Liga Underwell still, and very strong box to box midfielder. Great ball winning capabilities all round. He's just very good. So provides a lot of thrust at midfield. He will accentuate the press. He will enhance their ball winning capabilities in the middle of the park. And you've got Joao Gomes, who's also turned out to be quite a smart buy for Wolves. Again, a Brazilian, somebody who's very strong from an all-round perspective, pops up here and there in attacking positions, but from a defensive standpoint, quite strong. But just to sum up, Dan, I mean, they're bottom of the league, and which means obviously possession isn't really high for them. So take these stats with a pinch of salt. But despite being bottom, obviously helps them in this regard. They are top in the league for tackles and tackles in the defensive third. They are third in the league for tackles in the attacking third. So very tenacious, love winning the ball back in those areas, and then obviously they win high turnovers, then they'll try and attack from there. But in deeper positions, when they are in a stubborn block, those three midfielders will be very hard to bypass, and they will win the ball back there, and they will try to push and create breaks in the attacking line. So that's the midfield and the threat that they pose. In attack, you talked about Jürgen Strand Larsen. So he hasn't hit the heights of last season, but still remains quite a lethal all round threat. Good with his feet for a big man, excellent with headers. So he will attack crosses. Wolves, I think, third in the league for crosses this season. So they will use their wide players to go and cross at the earliest opportunity as much as they can. So that's something Strand Larsen is very, very good at. They also bought a second forward who I watched a lot in Belgium, Tolio Arokodare. So he is a 6 feet 6 inch target man. Surprisingly, I would say quite a deceptive one because he's very good with his feet, moves very quickly, able to link up really well, but not really good at finishing. I think that's where he struggled. Shooting can be a little off, getting into those goal scoring positions, making the right decisions. The composure is a bit of a question mark, but in terms of a box presence, not many that you'll get taller or more significant than him. So we've basically got two big men in the box and trying to create those issues from wide deliveries. So that's going to be quite the interesting thing. So under Pereira, Wolves pushed in a high press. They used to go man to man quite aggressively, and then they would retreat into a 4-1-4-1 with Andre sitting in between the midfield line and the defensive line to clean up, and that would become a 5-4-1 depending on how many attackers were there on the last line. But obviously, all of it is expected to change, I'm guessing. But wouldn't be surprised if they come out with another back three, back five, in my opinion.
Well, definitely important things to consider. And I think it might surprise some people how many positive things or nice things you're able to say about this Wolves side. Let's switch gears. I know that there are weaknesses. I know there's things you're going to want to talk about as opportunities for a team. Again, it just has to start with the number of goals that they've scored and then also the number of goals that they conceded. That has to be the first thing you want to talk about.
Well, I mean, you made that point earlier, so I mean, best in both those regards. Best for goals conceded, best for goals. I mean, best for just absolutely being
Uh,
pathetic in front of goals. So
I
yeah,
I don't know if
so
we call that
I mean,
best though, Sam. I feel like that's a kind of like a half
yeah,
compliment there,
can
or
we
a
say?
little
I mean,
aggressive.
yeah, can we? I mean, I have to be balanced. So can I just say best at being pathetic? Like, add a little bit of, I don't know, backhanded compliment there. I don't know, but
Just a little
yeah, I mean,
banter that we didn't know that you had in your skill set there. We're really learning more about your ability to
I
assess
try
a
to be
team and throw
respectful.
some slander.
I try to be a little, respectful, but I have a younger sister, so I'm used to roasting people at a very high degree. So, yeah, I mean, let's call a spade and say that it's been quite dire from both ends. So, goals scored, I think they stand at 7, joint bottom with Nottingham Forest, joint worst for goals conceded with 22, like you mentioned earlier. High press we talked about, quite chaotic. And if you want to see a great example, then watch. I think was it one of the goals against Wolves? I don't remember which one that we scored, but uh, there are three players converging on one player, and Buonanotte is in absolute oceans of space. He collects it and then runs at the defense and. Essentially, I think it was direct George goal. I remember. So Buonanotte collects it, runs at the defense. Nobody steps up because they have any idea of like what to do. So Gittins gets the ball and provides the cross for Tyreek George. So the press can be chaotic, can be quite, all over the place. But again, just a star sort of there, a footnote saying this was a different manager, different instructions. So probably would not be the same weaknesses, but this is what's happened to them. Lots of gaps in midfield because they've got high profile ball winners there who want to win the ball, and that leaves gaps in the middle. So the mid block, I think, as when they play in a 5-4-1 or in a 4-1-4-1, can be quite passive. And I think the biggest mistake that I saw when they made against us was when they were even trying to hold quite a back five. We were able to comfortably get that diamond in midfield that Maresca really likes against back fives, and that created an incredible amount of issues. And you've got Bonanote, you've got Andre Santos, you've got one more on the right hand side trying to create issues in those areas. Then even your midfield, no matter how good they are, will be absolutely you know all over the place in terms of who has to step up and which one do you leave. And the defensive line seems very, I think it's a confidence issue, not certain about pushing up and getting tight, and that created a lot of issues in the middle of the park. So that's been the tough one. And the last one I'd probably say is, they've conceded 5 goals from outside the box this season, which is I think joint top in the Premier League. So midfield aggressive jumps, I think, being another issue. And when you're running at the back line, if they're backing off, then probably makes a lot of sense for you to go from distance and see if you can catch somebody out. So long shot goal probably on the card. So a little bit of a foreshadowing of what might come in my on the ledge prediction there.
Are you about to say that Moises Caicedo is about to go back top of Chelsea's goal scoring total with another long range banger in
hmm
this one?
Yep, let's just throw it out there. Moises Caicedo doing the Jorginho and getting on top of the goal scoring charts for us.
Look, it would be a wild part of the season if that were absolutely a part of it. Look, we're going to take our last ad break. When we get back, we are going to talk all about those questions that Enzo Maresca has to solve. But stay tuned and we'll be right back. All right, Sam, walk me through a couple of the questions you think Enzo Maresca is going to have to solve for, and I will try to answer them to the best of my Maresca ability.
Should I introduce myself in typical fashion, or should I just dive into the questions now that we've got
You could dive. You
accreditation
could you
sorted
could
out?
dive right into the. Yeah, you could dive right into the question.
All right, so let's begin with probably the more obvious one. We had to make some emergency changes and throw on a lot of personnel that Maresca mentioned he wanted to rest. So Moises Caicedo probably not supposed to take the field this early. Enzo Fernandez played, quite a significant amount of minutes. So what are you thinking the lineup looks like in midfield? Are you maybe considering Andre Santos, because it's probably one of those sides where you look at it and say probably could play him here and rest one of, say Enzo or Caicedo, and then try to prepare for the next game? So are you going with your strongest one despite knowing that both of them are not training every day?
I feel as if he is going to choose to go with Enzo and Caicedo, and Andre Santos does not start. The only reason being is that from his perspective, all he has to care about is this game and then just has to worry about whatever their national teams are or aren't doing between now and the mid end part of November. I mean, this is the last game before the international break. So I do think as if he will use the maximum amount of safe minutes he can get away with both of those players. I do think that means that we see Andre Santos come into the game at some point. I don't think he ends up starting him though. That would just be my guess, my thought on it. Again, we saw only a half of Enzo Fernandez, and we saw again 81 minutes of Moises Caicedo. And look, we only played with the ball in for under 46 minutes. So really, was Moises Caicedo even playing at all? Is the real question we should be asking ourselves. I think in general, I would expect Moises Caicedo, Enzo starts. I don't think he's going to be overly keen, even against a side that's struggling, to give up what should be 3 points in the bag for Chelsea heading into this. Because if you take the 3 points at this point in time, regardless of what happens with anyone else, that puts you on 20 points and that puts you somewhere still within the conversation of other teams, in what they are or not going to be doing between now and their international break. I mean, you have things like Tottenham, Man United play each other this weekend, so that could leave if they draw. They're on 18 points each. You win this game, you're at 20. You're now +2 on both of them. Bournemouth, who's currently ahead of us on the table, play Aston Villa. Aston Villa team that's a little resurgent. They've won 4 out of their last 5. This Bournemouth team, draw, win, loss. Yeah, they lose, all of their points essentially. Villa goes up to 18. Bournemouth stays on 18. We're on 20. Now we've jumped a couple more positions. Sunderland is playing Arsenal. I'm going to guess that Arsenal win. Hopefully they concede a couple goals because I really need that goal record allowed to maintain Chelsea's and not theirs. That could be another position. So, I mean, Chelsea by winning could potentially move up into 4th position if some results or higher results go their way. It's also Man City Liverpool weekend as well. So, I mean, if they draw, you actually could be 3rd if all the other results break your way, level on points with Man City. It's a very good weekend to win. Like, I think that it is going to be in Enzo Maresca's mind of like, hey, this changes again, just like the Liverpool match. Winning this game heading into international break is going to change the conversation for a 2-week period around Chelsea Football Club. And you want to be on the right side of that conversation. So I think he goes with a heavy lineup.
Look, Dan, being a fellow optimist, I absolutely admire you and I, appreciate our friendship. But all of that suspiciously sounded like, if my grandmother had wheels, she would be a bike. To be honest, I mean, if this permutation happens, then we're up to 3rd. I mean, I applaud that. I really wish I was, in that position. I do feel a little deflated in terms of seeing the performance being inconsistent throughout. So, I mean, everybody else is doing that as well. So, you would want to, like you say, go all guns blazing before the international break. Make sure you get the points sealed, and then from there, you can basically mount a challenge when Cole Palmer is back. Liam Delap has a little more legs in. Joao Pedro, I don't know if he's called up, if he's resting a little bit. Everybody looks a little fresher. So you don't know. I mean, it could happen. Everything that you've said could materialize, but I'm probably looking at it this and saying that there will be fatigue issues, and I probably won't overreact if I see a little bit of a lull happening. In performances there. So just putting it out there, it's notoriously difficult for us to get after long Champions League trips and put together 100% performance, and you would agree with me. So we'll see. But absolutely, if I could, conjure up whatever you're saying and get us up to 3rd, I will not complain. In fact, I will do whatever it takes to compensate you for it. But next question, Dan, would be something related to maybe Josh Achimpong. This was a question I wanted to ask Enzo Maresca, but I chickened out. I'd said, okay, first time talking to him, I don't want him to hate me there. So just wanted to ask him, what's the deal with Josh Achimpong? Are you thinking it's like, is it just he's falling short somewhere, or is it inconsistency, or is it just being unlucky at this point?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like whatever it is, it's very unfortunate because it does seem as if he has a skill set, has an ability, is a player that Chelsea would want to cultivate, would want to find opportunity for, to nurture and develop him so that he could be one of the core guys heading into next season in particular. Because I'm, thinking about just where we are right now, right? We have Levi Colwell long term. We have, Benoit Badiashile, who's been in and out. We have, Tosin, who really struggled. You have Hato, who came in, didn't necessarily look like he's going to be a great solution as a left-sided center back. Definitely more in a little more caliber, I think, of him in the left back role as a deputy for Marco Correa. So you're really in a situation where it's Trev Chalobah plus someone else. Whether it's West Fafana on the day, it does seem like someone that has garnered a lot of trust from Enzo Maresca. I would be. It's just odd. It's so odd to me. I mean, again, like if we're just talking about like overall minutes, I mean, to be fair, like he has got more minutes than Garnacho, Gittins, Andre Santos, West Fafana in the Premier League, Estevao in the Premier League, and like he's only 40 less than 40 minutes behind Tosin. So like he has gotten opportunity in the Premier League this season, which I think is like it's just hard because you're like, well, we've only played 10 games. Yeah, but he's been in 5 and he started 4 of them. So it does feel as if he's working himself into consideration as a more legit part of the starting pair. Again, if you just kind of look at defenders this season for Chelsea, I mean, he is one of 3 who have scored a goal this season. So Trev Chalobah with 2, Reese with 1, and now Josh with 1 as well. That's Premier League only that we're talking about, just in terms of those stats. So I do think as if there is a case to be made that like he is getting requisite opportunity. It just doesn't seem to be as much in the other competitions, which I think is maybe the more surprising piece with some of the player availability. I mean, Tosin's at, 700 effectively total minutes when you take in the entirety of the competition. And, 225 of those are Champions League minutes. I mean, Josh has featured for 52 Champions League minutes. So it does seem as if there's trust from Enzo Maresca for him, but it does seem to be more domestic trust than international trust. So I would expect that he could very well start this game. And I would not be surprised. Again, I do think he's better suited for a right center back role. And maybe that's the challenge with, whom he partners with. There's really not a good, I would say, standout from a left-sided center back role when it comes to who is available. I mean, really, whether it's West, whether it's Trev, they all seem a little bit more suited to that right-handed role, and so I do think that causes a little bit of a congestion as to how Enzo Maresca is thinking about the lineup and lineup depth.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because my question framing when I was trying to approach Maraska in Baku was, um, he's obviously done a starring role against Sunderland. He's had a couple of really good games. Then obviously against Wolves, I would say he was all right. A couple of other games he was not so good. He's also the Chelsea player with the most errors leading to shots, which kind of surprised me. And he has twice as many as anybody else in the side. So is it a question of maybe there's a little bit of bias, in my eyes when I'm looking at him because obviously so desperately want him to succeed as a Cobham centre back, or is there something else in training that is going on that you're seeing, or is it just a matter of not giving him too much at a time when obviously games come thick and fast and slowly ease him in? So those are all questions that I ask myself. I would love his perspective on it. But obviously, we watch 90 minutes a week and he's taking training every day. So we've got to respect that decision, especially when the data says that there is a little bit of concern in there. So I would probably just, wait and see. I have no doubts that Maraska rates him extremely highly, but I think it's just a matter of demanding more, cleaning up those errors and polishing what he can and become the Rolls Royce defender that we know he can become. So probably the logic there. But let's just move on to our favorite part, Dan, yours and mine. Let me go and ask you about the scoreline and give me a lovely, unpredictable on the ledge prediction for this game.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it is a Chelsea win. I'm a little I don't know what to do with the scoreline, to be very frank. I mean, in their last couple matches, Fulham put 3 past them, we put 4 past them, Burnley put 3 past them, Sunderland put 2 past them. But again, maybe there's a little bit of that, hey, we got rid of the manager holding us back type of energy. We want to show up. We want to show out. We want to let the supporters know that, or the away supporters traveling that, we weren't the problem. It was the manager that was the problem. And so maybe they do play a little bit more above their station. I I don't know. With how tired we might be in the midweek, I hate that I'm going to say this because it means that all of us are going to suffer for about 90 minutes. I'm going with a 1-0 Chelsea victory. And it's actually going to be the goal will be in the second half. The goal will not be in the first half. We will go into the half, 0-0 draw, and our goal will come somewhere between the 65th and 80th minute of play after Enzo Maresca's substitutions.
Oddly specific, but I love it. That's the kind of stuff that tickles the stat nerd inside of me. So you've done your research. I'm sure you're trying to put it in the disguise of, oh, I'm being a mystic and this is going to happen. So I mean, I will take that prediction, and if it's a win, no matter what the scoreline, I'm taking it. I will go a little more generous, and I'll probably say maybe a 3-1 here. And yeah, I mean, I'm probably in terms of like an on the ledge prediction, I think Liam Delap gets on the score sheet. I think he does it from outside the box. And, I said Moises Caicedo also a possibility, but I think Liam Delap is somebody who probably gets in that position and gets a bomb away for us. So 3-1, Liam Delap outside the box.
Wow. Okay, Liam Delap outside the box. How many like is he? I mean, I don't feel like I've seen a lot of Liam Delap outside the box goals, so I'm curious to see what that's going to look like here.
Oh, he's very good. He scored a couple of bombs for Ipswich, and it's really, really good. He's got a arrow for a shot when he gets, in those left wing positions. He cuts inside and shoots. Really good shooting. So I'm expecting sooner rather than later for him to pop up, and I think this feels like the game.
I will say in their last three Premier League games, they have allowed an own goal in two of them. Two of them. So I'm going to go with that. It could be Liam Delap who shoots the ball. I'm actually going to say it's going to be another own goal. So we're not even going to get credit for the goal, despite it having been shot maybe perfectly by someone like Liam Delap. 1-0 Chelsea victory actually goes down as an own goal, but we're going to take it because it's 3 points and it potentially puts us in the top 2 or 3 spots in the Premier League.
I think knowing my fortune is going to be an own goal from outside the box. So I'm not going to get points for that one. So but might as well embrace half of it and then say, okay, I did my homework.
Well, look, that's all that we have for this preview. Again, Chelsea taking on Wolves this weekend. We'll be back next week with a Wolves match review for you all, in addition to a couple of other episodes over the international break, because that's right, the Chelsea women will be back in action. And we want to make sure that we're chatting about them as well with you all. Maybe a little South American special over the international break as well. And then, get you back with a couple of Matt Law episodes before the Burnley match review. But look, before we get out of here, we will do our typical outro, but we've got a couple extra minutes of content on the very end. Just some voice note action from Sam while he was in Baku, in Azerbaijan for the game. But stay around for that one. And until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep blue flag flying high.
All right, guys, this is Sam here, live from Baku. It's been an absolutely incredible experience. We are just hours away from Chelsea taking on Karabakh, which is an absolutely fantastic fixture here. I'm actually sitting with an Azerbaijani Chelsea fan, Nihad Abbasov, who's been a fan for as long as I have been. And we're sitting here having Azerbaijani chai, and he's having a nice latte, which explains the scheme of things. So I wanted to ask him a couple of questions about his experience as a Chelsea fan. So, Nihad, welcome to the London is Blue podcast. And tell us a little about yourself, about your experience as a Chelsea fan.
Welcome, Sam. Welcome to Baku. I hope you enjoy your vacation, let's say here. Well, Chelsea versus Karabakh is my childhood team versus hometown team. It's very difficult to choose which side to support. But my heart says you have to choose Chelsea because I've been a Chelsea fan since the age of 6. It's been 21 years. But I hope it ends 1-1. Yeah, but my brain says Chelsea needs 3 points because the next match is against Barcelona. So 3 points is most important thing for now, Chelsea. I hope it goes well as well. There will be no injuries, no other problems. Just a fun game and enjoy the match.
So tell us a little about your last game at Baku. You were here for the Europa League final where we absolutely beat Arsenal to a pulp. What was that like? What was it watching Eden Hazard's last game here? And what are you expecting today? Who are you most excited to watch?
Well, that match was one of my favorite match I have ever been to because the before the match, the Arsenal TV, AFC TV, it was here. I was watching them, and they were like, "Chelsea are the underdogs. We will beat them." But they forgot that when Chelsea is underdog, they are winning. They forgot about it, and in first half it ended 0-0. But in the second half, Giroud scored. I started triggering Arsenal fans. I was sitting next to Arsenal fans. I started triggering them. When they scored their only goal, they start celebrating. A few minutes later, Eden Hazard scored the last goal, and it's ended 4-1. It was the best I have ever been felt to. I still kept its photos, videos in my phone right now. Seeing that match, N'Golo Kante live was the best moment of my life because yeah, I love Eden Hazard. I love all other players, but N'Golo Kante is the most humble person among them, I think. And when seeing him live, I said, "Wow, incredible!" He was having a knee injuries before that, and he went that match with knee injury, and he put a 10 out of 10 performance.
So, who are you most excited to watch today of all the players that you think might play? Who are you looking out for and saying, this is the guy I'm keeping my eyes out on for?
Well, I think Esteban is incredible. Seeing him live will be very, very exciting. I think most of the starting players will be on the bench. If my prediction is goes well, I think most of them on the bench. I also very love Enzo Fernandez. If I see him live, if I see him play, I hope him to start, but I think he will be on the bench.
I mean, I was at the press conference yesterday with Gurban Gurbanov, and Elvin, the left back, was actually doing it, and he was asked whether Estevao, how is he feeling about him? Is he nervous? And he was quite confident. So, could be a good game there. But thank you so much, Nihat, for speaking to me. It's been an absolute pleasure sitting down and speaking to you, and hope you have an absolutely wonderful game.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a nice visit. I hope you enjoy the match.